I hold a belief that all humans are motivated by self interest. I don't like to use the word greed. Greed is self interest at the expense of others. There's a great saying from a science fiction writer. He said, never appeal to a person's better nature. They might not have one. Appeal to their self interest. It gives you more leverage. Because humans, and I have yet to find an exception to this, human beings don't do anything without getting something back, be it tangible or intangible in nature. You might drop a fiver in the hat of a homeless person or a busker out on the street. It gave you a warm fuzzy. Because altruism is based on self deception. And to be honest, self deception is the true root of all evil. This is part of the reason why I have such trouble with the left. It's this notion that somebody, me being forced at gunpoint to give up part of my life, liberty, or property for some imaginary greater good. And that's what comes back to this whole point about reparations. I had nothing to do with it. Why am I being punished for it? I didn't benefit from slavery in any way, shape, or form, but there are people today that want me to pay for it. And I think to a certain degree that takes Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech and turns it on its head. He said he wanted his four little children to be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And things like this whole restitution issue is, oh, based on the color of your skin, you're automatically guilty, even if you had nothing to do with it. And it comes back for me and my self interest. There's nothing, and that's not me being greedy, that there's no benefit for me to pay a restitution for something that I had nothing to do with. That's pretty much right there. Is, you can't ask people to pay for something that they didn't do without generating a lot of resentment in the process that could backfire into everybody's face.
Thank you, Joseph.
Well, I think I already made my point, so let's go to the next person. Did you see Savannah raise her hand? Is she on the list?
Savannah, speak. Sorry. Speak, Savannah.
And then S.
Problem. Joseph is right when he says to pay reparations to these people would cause a lot of backlash because that would be coming out of taxpayer money. I pay taxes. That would be my money being paid to these people. As far as the success rate after slavery, Black people under Jim Crow laws were thriving. In fact, I was born in a place where in the 1920s, Black Wall Street, that's what it was called, Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, was a thing. And Black Wall Street had businesses and they had businesses, hotels, and these places were doing better than their white, than the white neighborhood across the tracks, right? And when it comes to reparations, I don't disbelieve in reparations for certain peoples. Like, I think, Armin, you mentioned North Korea, right? But the thing is, descendants of slaves do not deserve reparations. They had all of this time to just give me a second, Samantha. I'll explain why.
Ignore the emojis.
Okay,
It's
okay. Where was I? So they had all of this time and all of these bouts of success within their community under Jim Crow laws. When Jim Crow laws went away, right, and all of these benefits started pouring in for them, it just dwindled. There was less Black businesses, less Black wealthy families, less success, less college, you know,
final point.
all of my point is when you look at Greenwood, right, and what happened there in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Greenwood, Black Wall Street was the #1 race massacre in the US history. those people, the descendants of those people, I would say they deserve reparations because their families were successful after slavery, and then it was demolished, it was burned down, people were killed, slaughtered, all of these businesses were destroyed. And that allowed for their descendants to be poor, to be worse off, right? And so I would say those people in those situations deserve reparations. However, after slavery, they all had these same opportunities, right? There was segregation, I understand that, but they all had these same opportunities and they found ways to make themselves successful. Once they started getting all of these benefits, that's when a large percentage of this community became lazy. We know that there were lots of people that under those circumstances made very good financial decisions that would have set their families up, and it was taken from them. I would be okay with giving people from the Tulsa Race Massacre, descendants from the Tulsa Race Massacre, you know, those things, but I wouldn't give all of them those things. I don't think that's fair. That's not fair.
Okay. All right. So I'll go. I think that I'm talking out of my knowledge because that's the type of things that I'm more swimming in. When the Jews got reparations from the Holocaust, it's worth mentioning that a lot of the reparations that they got was due to the things that they had, not the things that they didn't have. They had a lot of businesses in Germany. They had real estate, they had bank accounts. They didn't, it's not an automatic process. It wasn't an automatic process that it was like, oh, you were a Jew in the Holocaust, here is your money. It wasn't like that. Some people, the German government paid as much as they could. Some people got a bit more, some people got a bit less, and it was because the Jews in Germany had more, some had more, and some had less. Now, they couldn't give them the full reparation after the country was rotten from war. They couldn't really give them, let's say, dollar for what they had. But they gave something that was respectable. The entire firm was his. So they didn't give us a real estate firm that worth the same amount, okay? That's one thing worth mentioning. The Jews got reparations because things that they had and not because things that they didn't have. The other point is that lots of Jews did not receive reparations. Lots of them felt, and the Israeli government capitalized on that, felt that this money could serve better the new state of Israel, can purchase maybe military stuff, guns, I don't know. Many gave the reparations to the state of Israel and never saw one mark from it. Not everybody, but many did it. So the Jews don't whine. Sorry. The next person is Nail Bunny.
So, a few things. I think that human beings are wired for meritocracy. So, if you work hard as an individual and then you're rewarded for that work, that's what we expect. If you don't get rewarded for your work, then you feel cheated. And if everybody's treated exactly the same and not everybody's working the same, that's just not fair. So, I think we're wired for meritocracy. And capitalism is meritocracy. And I'm just going to cite Thomas Sowell, who is an economist, and he actually studied the effects of affirmative action in college systems. And what he found was that affirmative action was for Black people to get a chance to go to universities. So, somebody who had worked hard, they were a good student, but were they actually at the level of Harvard? No. But then they let them into Harvard or another university that's like the hardest to get into. And what he found was that, say, this average sort of good student who had worked hard, but not at the level of Harvard. And then they let him into Harvard. And what happens is he's not ready for Harvard and he can't keep up at Harvard. And so this guy, who, if he had just gone to, I don't know, just another university, a good one, but not Harvard, would have actually done very well. It would have been at the right pace, the pace that they were comfortable with, that they could succeed at. And they would have got an excellent degree, had a good job, all the good things. But because they put him to Harvard, it meant that they would drop out because they couldn't keep up. And it wasn't that they dropped out. It wasn't like they left and went to another university. No, it demoralized them because they couldn't keep up. And it made it feel like, oh, I'm a loser. And then they fail. So it's basically, by trying to help them, they were actually screwing them over. And this is why Thomas Sowell, who's Black, was pointing it out. It's like, you're not helping these people. You're actually screwing up their lives. Just let them go to the university that they're accepted at, and they will thrive. And so he basically did this study, and anyway, it's an amazing study. And the thing is that it kind of goes both ways. So if you're given something, you're handed something that you haven't really earned, you don't really value it, and that's like money. So basically, if you're given money and you didn't do anything for it, you don't value it. If you work hard and you get money for it, you value it. And there's a reason why Marx and Engels came up with, Marxism or socialism or communism or whatever. They never worked a day in their life. They never earned a penny. They were rich. They never had to earn money. So they never worked for anything. So to them, this theory works great. But to somebody who is actually working class, who works for their money, they look at it and go, that's bullshit. And the only person that looks at that and thinks that's amazing is somebody that doesn't work. And quite frankly, at this point, the thumbs down are giving me Dave Smith, who, you can tell him stuff, you can tell him facts, and he listens and he goes, oh, okay. And then he just goes on with whatever he originally thought. It's as if the words never entered into his ears and he just thinks the same way. So I invite you to listen and think about it rather than instantly giving your thumbs down.
You're muted, us.
Okay, let's breathe. Let's breathe a little bit. I think all of us. The world friends, the thumbs down is an emoji. Ignore it.
But I think it's also like, Samantha, I think people make, like, it makes people not, I mean, in the middle of making a point, when they see a thumbs down, it's kind of not a good feeling. So just keep that in mind.
I think in general, it's better to respond and to say.
Yeah, just raise your hand. So instead of like just doing multiple thumbs down, just raise your hand so you could respond to their points when it's your turn. I think that would be more productive.
I mean, you go, and after you, it's Samantha. The list is pretty much you and Samantha, so take as much as you need.
Okay. First of all, it's interesting because if you look at Jewish people, they had it bad almost all the fucking time, right? Everybody was against them. Most places they were. And they fought back and they made it, and they made it more than most people. In fact, they didn't let the racism and the discrimination against them, not only did they not let that held them back, it made them actually work harder. It made them even try harder, and made them actually come up with a culture and mindset of, we will survive, we will fight back. And because of that mentality, survival mentality, they ended up not only recovering from all the discrimination against them, but end up being better than the rest of the population. because they weren't letting all this discrimination. So I'm saying you can see that it's possible, like they can be done. Just going around and constantly blaming others for being held back, it hasn't served the people who use that method. Like people who say, like, you know what, society is against me, I can make it, we will fight back, we will overcome this barrier, right? This obstacle. That mentality makes people overcome the obstacles. But to make the obstacle look bigger and bigger and bigger, and then use that as an excuse for all your failures, that's what produces, a backward society, right? That's one thing. And talking about mindset, the second point is that never have we seen a group of people all of a sudden succeed because you just gave them some money, right? In fact, if anything, we've seen that works the opposite, right? So it doesn't produce, when you say like, oh, these people are behind, let's give them some money, it doesn't produce the mindset that is required to get you ahead. So a lot of people think that if you are behind other people, if we give you something, that will lift you. So for example, if you have a child, right, and your child comes to you and say like, oh, my toy car is broken, right? If you take that toy car and you fix it for them, then what you taught them is to become dependent. That's what they learn from this. But if you sit with them and like, okay, let's look at the toy car, what can we do? If the kid fixes it in front of you, if you teach it to fix it in front of you, then they realize that they are capable. When you give money to a group of people to make them recover, you're actually teaching them dependency. You're not, so because more than money, it's the skill set and the mentality that you have that makes you get ahead of other people. And giving people money actually teaches you the very opposite of that. And that's why, like, even in charity, they're realizing that doesn't work. If you go to like a village that needs money, and if you just give them money, like if you just give them charity, instead of investing in the right mindset and the right skills that they might need to lift themselves. I mean, everybody says teach a man to fish, or give a man a fish, or teach a man to fish. This just giving people reparations stuff is basically, it makes them addicted to it, and they will actually not be able to now survive without it. And people actually know that, and this has been proven. So yeah, that's my point. Oh, Samantha, it's okay, right? Like, don't feel so, guys. Samantha has had some really traumatic experiences with really, crazy bad people. So she's dealing with a lot of bad experiences for people. So let's be try to go easy on her. So Samantha, you're doing good, okay? Don't feel bad if we ever give you some feedback. We're not trying to attack you or hate on you, okay? So we're just giving some feedback. You're doing good.
It's a debate group. We
Okay.
all talk out of our asses.
Yeah.
I would like to hear what you have to say, if you have anything to say.
It feels like suggesting that there shouldn't be equal outcomes in both. Like, it feels evil to say that.
Walk me through it. I didn't understand. Walk me through it slowly.
It feels evil to say that. Like,
What is it invoking you?
because it feels like you're saying that some people deserve more than others. It feels like
Gave
you're saying
this
some
away.
people are worth more than others. It feels evil, and it feels dangerous to say that.
But some people do deserve more than others if they work harder for it. Isn't that fair? Is that
But,
not
like, it
fair?
feels evil to suggest that someone might work harder.
But people do work harder.
Yes.
Isn't it well, okay, I understand you're talking about your feelings. Well, let me tell you how I feel. I feel that it's evil if people who are working harder, who are deserving more, are stolen. We steal for them because we feel like it's evil that they have more. I think that's evil. I think if we take people's opportunities away from them, even though they deserve it because of the skills that they have and the hard work that they do. If we take that away from them because we feel that it's evil for them to have that, I think that is theft and that is evil. That's what I feel.
Like, it feels dangerous to not disagree with that.
Okay, but okay, regardless of what it feels like, if you actually look at the results, okay, societies who try to adjust for that inequality, everybody suffered. Like, just look at the historical record, okay? So I understand why you're feeling like that, and I understand that because we humans are born with this innate desire of fairness, and not in a modern global society, but in a tribe. So it was easier to figure out what's fair and what's not fair, and it's really hard to apply that instincts into the modern global societies that we have right now. So that's why, because that doesn't transfer from a tribe to this modern world that we live in, certain things that seem right is not actually right. And this is why communism sells very well, because it speaks to our instinct of what we think should be fair. Okay. But if we just put our feelings aside and look at the historical record, we could see that societies that try to bring about the equality that you think is good, everybody crashed, everybody suffered. It didn't produce, like, societies that rewarded people based on merit and ignored everything else, including their skin color or their history or anything else, and just made things based on merit. Those are societies that, on average, everybody was better off. And societies who tried to adjust for equality, they were left behind, and most people ended up being poor, and worse, actually starved to death.
But China,
China is capitalist. We told you about that already. China crashed when it became communist, and it grew exponentially fast as soon as they liberated their economies to some degree. Well, somewhat. So we already know that.
Okay.
Anything you want to say?
I feel like it's weird. It was weird the first time I listened to like people on Atheist Republic talk about being an ex-Muslim, because it's like I never left a religion, but I feel like I can weirdly relate.
Because you're leaving communism?
I still identify as a communist.
You said what?
I still identify as a communist.
Oh, you still do. Okay. Do you think, if we have data and we have our feelings, which one do you think is the more reliable source for making conclusions between our feelings and data?
I mean, like, it feels uncomfortable answering that right after we were just talking about, but like, obviously, like, data is more reliable than feelings.
All right, that's good. The fact that we might not agree with your points, but we appreciate the fact, like, what you should be proud of is the fact that you're open to talking with people with different opinions. This is good. Okay, so just baby steps. This is good. Oh yeah, and Savannah in the chat is mentioning you have a great heart. So even if your conclusions are wrong, your intention is for people to be better off. Okay, so that's your intention. Okay, and that comes from a good place. Even whether you're right or wrong about how we go about doing that, the fact that you're trying to come up with solutions that more people are better off, that's something to admire. Okay.
And it's also okay to be wrong. I think I switched my
Yeah.
mind mid-debate in here a few times already. I don't see it as a weakness.
That's good.
Savannah, what do you got in your heart?
Okay, so I have a few points. I went and found my pen and notepad for this one. Although I still came in late and I don't know what started this topic or like why we're on this topic or what point we're trying to get to. So bear with me a little. So I'm going to make my points and then I'm going to say something kind of to Samantha, or that aligns with what Samantha's saying, I think. So, for one, I think Armin said this, when you pay people and you don't teach them, right? When you just give them a handout, it doesn't teach them to be self sufficient. It doesn't teach them to rely on themselves. It teaches them to do whatever they had to do to get that handout again. And I think that we have seen that be perpetuated over and over and over again within the past 20, 30 years. Some people do deserve more than others, and that's exactly why I brought up Greenwood. That is exactly why I brought up Greenwood. Those people were thriving, they were wealthy. Their families would have had generational wealth, and it was stripped from them, right? So I do think those people, I would be okay if my tax dollars went to those individuals. However, I would not be okay if my tax dollars went to every descendant of slaves that exist in this country. Because, for one, I had nothing to do with slavery, right? That was not my family. In fact, that was not even most families, most white families in the US. So taking opportunities from those who are deserving creates resentment. That's a really, really big thing. I was in a program for it was like I was in high school, it was like a pre-program for architecture. I had to pay for it. And my family is not, we were not well off. I just had my dad, and he made less than $50,000 a year. My friend, who became my friend, right? She was black. Both of her parents were together, and her parents probably made 50 or $60,000 apiece. She got a free ride. Why is that fair to me? How is that fair to me? It's not. It's not. She lived in a better neighborhood. Her parents drove better cars. She had access to better food. Her power didn't get shut off. She always had warm water to shower in. She didn't sleep in the living room like I did in the winter because we had no electricity and it was cold and we had to huddle. She didn't go through any of that, but she got a free ride. And the person that did go through that did not. And I ended up having to leave the program because we couldn't afford it. I lost that opportunity. Okay. Next is, after slavery was abolished, Black people started to thrive. And it was during Jim Crow laws, and it was because they realized, right? And this is right after slavery. This is like right after they won, right? After slavery was abolished, they started to thrive because they realized the hard work and the effort and the determination that they put into getting slavery abolished was what was going to make them successful. Black performance dwindled after Jim Crow laws were outlawed and programs got put in place to try and lift them up. And it's because, when you, if you give a man if you teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever, right? So, what we end up doing with these programs is we're not teaching these people to go fish. We're not teaching them to be self sufficient. We are teaching them to be victims, and we are teaching them to play that card so that they get these handouts. Lastly, though, I will say that when it comes to, and I understand the numbers, I do, but I actually have a personal experience with this. Black offenders are more likely to commit violent crime. That's on paper, that there's statistics that say that, we know that. However, I do think that something that is an issue is Black neighborhoods get patrolled a lot more than white neighborhoods. I think that something that happens within law enforcement, I'm not going to say these officers are racist. I don't think they're racist, but something that happens is a built in kind of prejudice. It's a built-in, oh, they're black, so they're more likely to be doing something wrong right now. And when that happens, you do end up having more black people incarcerated, more black crime, that's what you're going to see. I also think that there's like 10 black people, 10, 12, black people a year killed by police. And so, that argument is a little, they say it a lot, people say it a lot, but to say it as true as, those cops are racist and they target black people, it's a double, I don't necessarily believe that, but I do believe that there is a kind of a mindset that these officers take on when they're patrolling predominantly black neighborhoods, when they're arresting predominantly black criminals. They end up looking for the black criminal, which results in more black criminals. I do think there is some prejudice still. There is some treatment towards the black community that, whether it's conscious or subconscious, I do think it still exists. They do still get categorized in such a way, and I do think that's wrong. But yeah, okay. We can't hear you, Ossie.
Yeah, because I'm an idiot. So I have a couple of things to say about that. First thing, I'll take it down one by one in order. First thing is to Samantha. You said that it might perceived, or somebody could say that it's racist to say that somebody is deserve more than somebody else, or somebody is capable of working harder than somebody else. Now, let's talk about feelings. Let's say
Okay.
that it's the holiday season. I work in construction. I used to work in construction. And I want to get my kids something nice. Like, I don't know, like PlayStation 6, let's say, coming out or something like that. Now, those things are usually when they come out, I don't know, like $1,000, give or less, maybe more. When they come up, they're pretty expensive. I need to work for it. I do double shifts. I wake up extra early. I bust my ass. I sweat on the roof. I put tart to get this PS6. And then somebody comes and say, "Listen, buddy, this is all nice what you did, but your neighbor, he cannot afford anything to his kid, not even a football. So we're gonna take some from you." What do you mean you're gonna take some from me? For the last 2 months, I was putting tar on roofs. Sorry, buddy. How does that make you feel? All right. So that was mostly point to this particular issue. My second point was about something that Savannah said. Actually, you said that you feel that the police could work on themselves on how to be less prejudiced and how not to, I guess, over patrol some neighborhood.
Can I restate what I said?
Yes, yes.
What I meant was, because of, I'm not necessarily saying they shouldn't patrol certain areas, even if they are predominantly black, because the crime rate in those areas is higher. If a crime rate is high in an area, I think that area should be patrolled. But I think what happens is those areas are predominantly black. And that creates even if it's subconscious, it creates a prejudice. And then those officers take that with them, even black officers, and it becomes a prejudice, even if it's subconscious. But Samantha just raised her hand again.
So here's what I want to say. And I'm going to use an analogy because that's the only way I can get the point across. When people in America, like leftists in America, are talking about Israel and Palestine, I am constantly told that I am a terrible person for empathizing with my people. I'm told I'm not allowed to have it. Like, I am told that both sidesism is a dirty word and that it shouldn't matter how Israelis feel, that, the Palestinians are the oppressed people and their feelings are above all else the most important. And my response is, fuck you if you're going to tell me I cannot empathize with my people. I
Good.
feel a lot braver
That's good.
disagreeing with the left when it comes to like Israel and Zionism than I do on any other topic. Because to me, that is the one thing that like I cannot be. That I am just so strong in my beliefs that I'm not be told I am not allowed to empathize with my people. I do not have the same backbone that I have when it comes to talking about Israel.
Yeah, but you're not talking to some anti-Israel lefty person. You're talking to me.
Yes, but like
Could
I
I?
feel like they're always watching me, even when they're not.
Okay, so
Okay, go
Khaled
ahead,
and
man.
then Oscar.
Yeah, I have a question for Samantha. And if you, my question is, I don't know if this is true or not. In your country, in America, is there universal healthcare or not?
Israel has universal healthcare. America does not have universal healthcare.
Okay. And also, Samantha, you shouldn't be angry about your thing, about your being proud of your people. That
Oscar, please.
I think there is a level of inequality in society that doesn't benefit anyone. I work with highly acute mentally disordered people, and I have worked with kids with autism. And sometimes families, for whatever reason, they're born with, one child with autism, and they are a low income family. Maybe the dad is not as intelligent, maybe he's not as bright, maybe the mom is not as bright either, maybe she's an immigrant, whatever reason, right? So sometimes, like, there are some disadvantages, and I think that also communists get this wrong. Some disadvantages are not due because somebody's pulling a string or somebody is like like somebody's behind the injustice, and we just got to go after that class or after that person, and then we got to get rid of them or dispossess them of their possessions and give them to the victims. Some injustices are just life. Like, I've met families that, they had hopes of having a child, and the child is born with severe autism, and this just changes everything, right, for them. And maybe the parents have like a genetic disposition where the second child that they have is another child with autism. There are so many factors here. And what I'm trying to say is that we don't know if you're going to be that next person who just gets hit in the head with a soccer ball. It's really hard, and you just end up with no support system and with severe mental problems. There has to be at least something that doesn't allow those to fall through the cracks. Now, every system has trade-offs, right? And there are some people that definitely take advantages of these things. I see this all the time with psychiatry and these kinds of things where you have labels like schizophrenia that apply to such a wide variety of people, but you only have a couple of labels, right? There's thousands of people and only a couple of labels. So I think there's the fact that there is some injustice that is not due to human action, but it's just how it is. Like, the world, it just sucks sometimes. It's not fair. You don't know the outcomes of a lot of things or what's going to happen. And I think in that sense, I would be okay because I don't know if it would be me next, that ends up in a situation like that. So in that sense, I don't feel as, now it's a discussion of whether how much we ought to take from people to guarantee some of these kinds of benefits. And just a question that each society and each community should have and vote for and really be willing to discuss. But I think there is a certain level of inequality that it's not favorable to anyone at all.